Hello my dear viewers, welcome back to Ruhoni Sewing. Welcome back to the last part 4 of our series of the princess seam skirt. In this video we are going to concentrate on the lesson learned while drafting the pattern and sewing of the skirt. I have linked the previous 3 videos in the description box below. Without further delays, please let us start. Okay, so if you remember, these are the patterns that we had. We have this pattern here for the front, and the bottom pattern was for the back piece. And this pattern here is for the original skirt. This is our back pattern where we have 2 dots, and this one here is for the front. Okay, so let us start. What are the lessons learned in this series? The first lesson is about dots, the presence of dots in our pattern. Whether to use the pattern which has dots or the pattern which has no dots. Okay, so for the purpose of this lesson, we are going to use the front pattern. Okay, let us keep our back pattern and use the front pattern. The front pattern is easier to handle than the back pattern. So when we were drawing our pattern, we had to close this dot here. This pattern came from the pattern which had dots like this one here. So when you look at our dot here, especially at this part here of the waist, okay, it looked very shaped. Okay, closing the dot has shaped this part very well. Again, check this line here, the princess seam line, all the way down. We placed this princess seam line from the end of the dot. So the dot has helped us to place our princess seam line. So this was our dot, and at the end of the dot we elongated the line all the way down. Okay, so lesson number 2 is the placement of the dot as well as the size of the dot itself. So what do we mean by the placement of the dot? As you can see from this pattern, this is the original position of the dot. Let us go back to our original pattern. This is the back pattern with the 2 dots. So how did we get the dots? We measured this line and divided it by 3, and we got the position of the dot. And for the front, we positioned this dot from a distance which was 1/3 from the side seam. But on this pattern, the dot is at the center. That's the modification that we did. We moved the dot to the center. So if you were making this pattern from the scratch, not just tracing the original or basic pattern of the skirt, we would have followed almost all the steps except when deciding for the extra amount to add for the dots, especially for the back pattern, because we have 2 dots, okay, and each dot is 3/4 inch, and this one 3/4 of an inch. So first, remember, you are going to have 1 dot and you are going to put it at the center. Okay, because you are going to draw on 1 dot, then reduce the amount or allowance left for the dots. For example, here we have 3/4 of an inch for each dot. Then you could have decided to have 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch for a dot. So reduce the allowance for the dot, and that is for the back. Now for the front, this one here is a bit straight. Instead of placing your dot here, you relocate it to the center, and the amount for the dot would have remained the same, 1 inch wide. Moving on to the lesson number 3, and remember this was a pencil skirt. Modification to make it a pencil skirt should be done at the beginning of the process. So what do I mean by that? Let us take our pattern here. That is our waist. And here at the bottom, you see this line, this is where we made the modification. I don't think this is clear enough. Let me turn it a bit. Hope you can see it here clearly. That is a slanted line that we made. So exactly what do I mean? Let us go back to our basic pattern. Before thinking of adding the princess seam and all other modifications, modify your skirt to a pencil skirt here at the hem. Draw your pencil skirt line, okay, before anything else, before doing any modification to your skirt. Make sure you have already modified your skirt to a pencil skirt pattern. That way it will not be very confusing, because remember, when modifying our pattern, we are going to close this dart, and in closing we are going to open at the bottom, and then we have also to close the bottom. And if you remember, there are inches that we had to remove. If you had not decided from the beginning with this pencil skirt line, then at this point things might be very chaotic for you. Okay? Our last lesson is on the fabric. When you are making this princess seam skirt, think of the fabric. Now again, let us go back to our princess seam pattern. We have here on the left this piece. This is our side piece of the princess seam skirt all the way down, and we also have this, the center piece of our princess seam skirt. Of course, you can sew your skirt using the same fabric for the side piece and the center piece, but if you want for it to be seen clearly, then you have different fabric for these two pieces, like the one we made for our tutorial. Or if you are using one fabric, then I would advise you to make two top stitches here on the princess seam line all the way, so that it can be seen clearly. Or if you are sewing your skirt using a stretchable material, then for that matter I think you don't need to sew again. Okay, that one with a stretchable material, you don't need to sew the top stitch on the princess seam line. So these here are the 4 lessons that we have learned while making this princess seam skirt. Please join me again on my next video. Thank you.